Thank, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. I have the great pleasure of introducing not only a constituent and a business owner in my district, but a true friend, and that's Mr. Arnold Baker with Baker Ready Mix, who is the chairman of the National Black Chamber of Commerce and the CEO of Baker Ready Mix and Building Materials in New Orleans, Louisiana. Mr. Baker's successful small business has recently gone from only 10 employees to nearly 60. Mr. Baker is testifying on behalf of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, which has 140 affiliated chapters throughout the nation and reaches over 100,000 black-owned businesses. And also, Mr. Baker, on behalf of Congressman Landry and I understand that you've recently expanded to his district. So on behalf of both of us, welcome, and we look forward to hearing your testimony.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Congressman Richmond. Chairman Graves, Minority Leader Vasquez, and Congressman Richmond, distinguished members of this committee, thank you for inviting the National Black Chamber of Commerce to participate in this most important hearing. The NBCC proudly represents the fastest growing segment of the American economy, black-owned businesses. We were incorporated in May 1993. When we were incorporated, the U.S. Census Bureau stated that there were 300,000 black-owned businesses doing $30 billion in sales annually. Today, the U.S. Census Bureau states that there are over 1.9 million black-owned businesses doing over $137 billion annually. This fantastic growth has swelled our membership and made us the largest black business organization in the world. We have over 160 chapters, with 70% are located throughout the United States. Our database of black-owned firms exceeds 60,000 businesses. The NBCC Business Development Committee is rapidly making new inroads and increasing the sales of our members. Several of our chapters are working closely with the SBA and have members benefiting from SBA-sponsored and or supported programs. Despite this fantastic growth, we found that the federal government the actions of the federal government seem to be counter to this activity. With the exception of DOD contracts, of which we do not have the numbers for, in fiscal year 2010, black firms were awarded 3,994 contracts, all federal agencies except for DOD, as I shared earlier, which was a 16% decrease from fiscal year 2009 and a paltry 0.3% of the total contract volume. We suspect DOD numbers to be no better. SBA lending is somewhat better, but that's a variable decided upon by participating banks. For the past 20 years, small business entrepreneurs of this great nation generate 70% of all new jobs in America. If you want more jobs, then support the development and expansion of more small businesses. We've just met with 2 ambassadors from other countries who are replicating the efforts that we're doing here to create small businesses in their countries. The world is watching our small business development support system, watching it and replicating it. Cutting support for small business programming at this time, when the country needs jobs, as the world is watching us to replicate us, seems counterintuitive. A better funded and better staffed field infrastructure for the SBA is critical to continued improvement of this nation's economy. We see no indication that cutting SBA funding is the right solution at this time, as outreach and inclusion to the business community is still rudimentary and critical for our continued development. If we just look to the black business community, the latest census reports show that while the black business community was fast growing, the majority of black businesses around the country employ 1 employee and generate less than $60,000 a year in gross revenues. That's according to our census. Other segments of the business community were not significantly more stable. This nation's small business community is still extremely fragile, and they deserve a federal government that assists in their development. Since the 1990s, the manpower of the field offices for the SBA has greatly declined. At one time, the New Orleans district office had over 70 employees. When Katrina hit, there were fewer than 20, and it could not possibly service the needs of the local business population. The National Black Chamber of Commerce stepped up its activity. We made over 75 visits within the first 3 years, and for the first 3 years also had our annual conventions there to bring attention to the issues and help bring resolutions to the table. The SBA and Women Business Development Centers that they funded all collaborated and helped bring this to fruition through a host of outreach activities, information sharing, sharing of databases. I'm proud to say that our newly opened Gulf Coast chapters claim to have affected over $3 billion in rebuilding contracts, to the extent where we're now opening a regional office of the National Black Chamber in New Orleans to help with further collaboration. I feel a need to specifically address the potential of private entrepreneurial development programs replacing current services provided by the SBA. There is a fear spreading that this may create a temporary duplication in some markets. We must not forget that a private company can and only will provide services that they can generate profits from. It is the nature of business. As soon as that service, or as soon as that market, or as soon as that target population becomes unprofitable, they have a fiduciary responsibility to cease those activities. It's the nature of business. In this case, it would be to eliminate a segment of the population that needs it the most. It would be disingenuous for me to also not state that our members have expressed great frustration with the SBA and some of their programs. That happens. Even my wife has frustration with me. I mean, she admits that. Our members, especially those in the Gulf South, bore the greatest impact of their loan program deficiencies and diminished inclusion efforts. I personally, when Katrina hit, I had 5 employees. I had 1 plant. I had 5 trucks, and I produced concrete, and I had no idea what a PTAC was. I'd never had a federal contract before. I had no clue, you know. But it was through the assistance of, fortunately, the Women's Business Development Center was one of the first centers that opened, and I was actually able to garner information from there, which led me to other pathways, to where today I have 4 plants, I have 43 trucks, I have 58 employees, and, we're still growing, I now have 2 congressmen. This committee would do the country and the economy well by fighting for increased funding and bringing manpower back to the mid-1990s. There are, so the subject of reducing duplication, it's a tough question. I mean, it's tough. However, cutting support at this time is simply not worth the risk to the small business community. I thank you for allowing us this time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.